Mexican president has defended the military operation that captured a drug cartel leader, Ovidio Guzman.
The US is secretly using spy drones, military hackers, and even fake WhatsApp rumors to take down Mexico's most dangerous drug cartels, without ever stepping foot on the battlefield. They're freezing millions of dollars, hacking phones through charger cables, and tracking cartel bosses across the world with satellites. But to understand how this secret war even started, we need to rewind the clock. Back in the 1970s, President Nixon kicked off something called the War on Drugs. That's when the US started seriously going after drug dealers and smugglers. But honestly, most of the focus back then was on stopping drugs from coming into the US through places like Colombia. Mexico wasn't the main concern yet. Things changed big time after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. The US suddenly had all this new anti-terror tech, stuff like satellite spying, drones, and special forces teams. Instead of just using that tech overseas in war zones, they started using it closer to home. Why? Because the cartels weren't just selling drugs anymore. They were smuggling people, working with gun traffickers, and even threatening entire governments. They were basically acting like terrorist groups. Then, in 2006, Mexico's President Calderón declared war on the cartels. That's when the US really jumped in to help. One of the sneakiest and smartest ways the US fights Mexican drug cartels is by going after their money. Because let's be real, cartels are rich, like insanely rich. They make billions every year from drugs, human trafficking, and illegal weapons. So instead of only chasing drug dealers, the US decided to hit them where it really hurts, their bank accounts. There are special US government agencies that do this, like OFAC, Office of Foreign Assets Control, and FINCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. These guys are like financial detectives. They track where the money goes, freeze bank accounts, and block anyone who tries to help the cartels move cash. And they're not just watching banks in the US, they're scanning transactions all over the world. In 2012, the US put big-time sanctions on a cartel called Los Zetas. They even went after regular businesses, like horse farms and shipping companies, because those were secretly helping the cartel clean their money. Now, with advanced tech and global cooperation, the US can find cartel money in places like Dubai, Panama, or even random stores in Houston. When the money gets frozen, it's a huge problem for the cartels. They can't pay off corrupt cops, they can't buy new weapons, and they can't bribe officials as easily. And not all wars are fought with soldiers anymore. Some are fought with flying robots. Seriously. The US uses drones to spy on, track, and sometimes even attack Mexican cartels. Actual drone strikes, where missiles are used to kill targets, inside Mexico are super rare and really controversial. But surveillance drones, those are flying almost every day, especially along the US-Mexico border and sometimes way deep inside Mexico too. The drones collect crazy amounts of data, like heat signatures from people hiding in the jungle, convoy routes of drug shipments, and the GPS location of stash houses. What's crazy is that many of these drone missions aren't officially allowed by the Mexican government, but they still happen. How? Through secret handshake-style cooperation between US and Mexican intelligence agencies. Basically, both sides act like it's no big deal, as long as it helps take down cartels. Okay, so we all know the CIA is America's main spy agency. They usually focus on terrorists or foreign threats, right? But here's something most people don't realize. The CIA has also been deeply involved in fighting cartels in Mexico, just very secretly. These are not the kind of missions that get announced in the news. CIA agents are often placed in Mexico under diplomatic cover. That means they act like they're just working at an embassy or consulate, but behind the scenes, they're gathering intelligence and running undercover missions. Some of them work with informants, basically people inside the cartels who are secretly giving out info in exchange for money or safety. Other times, the CIA helps train elite Mexican units, like Special Marines, to take down dangerous cartel leaders. In one leaked report from 2011, it was revealed that the CIA was even helping coordinate anti-cartel raids directly from Mexico City. That's huge. But not everything they do is perfect or clean. There have been serious accusations that the CIA knew about large drug shipments and let them happen on purpose. Why? Because they wanted to track the drugs all the way up the chain to catch bigger fish. Most people think the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, only deals with drug busts in the US. But that's just part of the story. The DEA is actually kind of like a spy agency too. It has more than 90 offices in 70 different countries, and its main goal is to track how drug cartels operate all over the world, not just in Mexico. They don't just sit behind desks either. DEA agents go undercover, sometimes even inside Mexican law enforcement teams. They collect information secretly and build cases for years. In fact, they sometimes run their own secret operations without even telling the local police, just to avoid leaks. One of their biggest achievements was Operation Leyenda, which played a huge part in catching El Chapo, one of the most dangerous cartel leaders in the world. Not once, but twice. That operation showed how deep the DEA goes when it wants to catch someone. Here's one US strategy that totally backfired: Operation Fast and Furious. It sounds like a movie title, but it was a real-life plan that ended up being a huge mess.
The political storm that erupted today over an undercover government operation gone very wrong. It is called Fast and Furious. It was supposed to help in the crackdown on drug violence across the border in Mexico.
Between 2006 and 2011, US agents let thousands of guns be sold to people they knew were working with Mexican cartels. The idea was to let the guns walk, which means letting them move across the border so they could track where they went and hopefully find top cartel leaders. But yes, it didn't go well. Once those guns left US shops, most of them disappeared. Many ended up in cartel hands and were used in violent crimes, including the murder of a US Border Patrol agent named Brian Terry. That's when the whole thing exploded into a national scandal. Congress got involved, held hearings, and demanded documents. But a lot of info was redacted, blacked out, and no one really took full responsibility. The agency in charge, ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, took a major hit to its reputation. Instead of always sending in weapons or airstrikes, the US also fights cartels by training people. Through a deal called Plan Merida, the US has helped train special Mexican military teams, especially the Marines, in how to fight drug cartels like actual terrorist groups. They're more like SWAT teams on steroids. They get US gear like night vision goggles, bulletproof tech, encrypted walkie-talkies, and even Black Hawk helicopters. A lot of them are trained directly by Navy SEALs or US Special Forces in places like Fort Bragg. And it worked, for the most part. Some of the most successful operations against cartels, like the famous arrest of El Chapo in 2016, were done by these elite teams. The US provided training, tech, and sometimes even intelligence to guide these raids. It looked like a smart move: empower the locals so they can fight back on their own turf. But here's where things got messy. Some of the highly trained soldiers didn't stay loyal to the government. Instead, they switched sides and joined the very cartels they were supposed to fight, especially brutal groups like Los Zetas. These defectors used their training and weapons to make the cartels even stronger. Cartels aren't just dealing drugs anymore. They're also getting super tech savvy. These guys use WhatsApp, Telegram, burner phones, and even the dark web to stay ahead of the police. So now, the US isn't just chasing them in the real world, it's fighting them online too. This is called cyberwarfare, and it's where agencies like the NSA and Cyber Command come in. These teams use some of the most advanced tech in the world to intercept messages, hack cartel networks, and even track their exact location using what's called digital footprints. For example, if a cartel leader uses a secure app on a phone, these agencies can sometimes still find a way to ping the GPS and follow him in real life. There was one crazy case where US agents planted malware inside a phone charger. Yes, a regular-looking charger, which was sent as a gift to a cartel member. The second he plugged it in, his phone got hacked, and the agents could see everything: calls, chats, locations, even photos. Also, there's a super powerful spyware called Pegasus made in Israel, which has reportedly been used by the Mexican government, and maybe with help from the US, to spy on top cartel bosses. It can turn any phone into a spy camera without the person ever knowing. A lot of people think drug cartels only operate in Mexico, but the truth is, they have money guys working right inside the United States. And that's where ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, steps in. ICE isn't just about deportation and immigration stuff. They have special teams that deal with criminal investigations, and one of their top jobs is finding the people who help cartels move money inside the US. These cartel partners don't usually look like criminals. They might run used car dealerships, import-export companies, or even art galleries. But behind the scenes, they're helping launder money, which means they're hiding drug money by mixing it with regular business income so it looks legal. One major case was called Operation Hidden Idol, where ICE uncovered a crazy big money laundering scheme. Cartels were using fake art sales and shell companies to move over $100 million. That's not small-time stuff. That's major financial crime. By arresting these accountants and frontmen in the US, ICE hits the cartels where it hurts, the wallet. Without these helpers, it becomes much harder for cartels to clean their money, pay bribes, or buy more drugs and weapons. Believe it or not, the US doesn't just fight cartels with guns and drones. It also fights them using words, rumors, and messages, something called psychological warfare. This kind of battle is all about controlling what people think and messing with the enemy's mind. In cartel-controlled areas, people often live in fear. So the US tries to break that control by funding local radio stations, social media influencers, and even WhatsApp rumor chains. The goal? To turn regular people against the cartels. Let's say a cartel boss betrays his own crew. The US will spread that info fast to make him look weak or untrustworthy. But here's the crazy part. Sometimes the US doesn't even wait for real betrayals. They'll just plant fake stories to make cartel members suspicious of each other. For example, an anonymous text message might go out saying, "Cartel leader X is secretly working with the DEA." Even if it's not true, it can cause panic, infighting, or even violence within the cartel. When it comes to taking down cartel bosses for good, one of the US's strongest weapons isn't a drone or a spy. It's a legal tool called extradition. This is when someone is arrested in one country, but then legally sent to another country to stand trial. The US has a deal with Mexico that lets them bring cartel leaders to the US to face justice. And trust me, that's a big deal. Because Mexican prisons, let's just say, they're not super secure. There have been tons of cases where big cartel bosses escaped, bribed guards, or continued running their business from behind bars. But once they're extradited to the US, that all changes. These guys get locked up in supermax prisons, like ADX Florence in Colorado. That place is basically a fortress. Prisoners are isolated 23 hours a day, watched non-stop, and cut off from the outside world. That's what happened to Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the infamous leader of the Sinaloa cartel. After escaping Mexican prison more than once, he was finally sent to the US. Now he's serving a life sentence in total lockdown. No calls, no messages, no influence,